guys? Pastor Rob here. If you missed our last ministry team leaders meeting, we want to say we missed you. And this is for you. I'm going to kind of condense this down a little bit and go a little quicker. So you're going to be missing some of the funny jokes and things like that I told at the meeting. But talk to everyone else. I'm sure they'll fill you in. It was riveting. Anyway, I want to share with you some of the things we talked about because, as I said in our last meeting, our last video, all that kind of stuff, we're working on new direction for our ministry team leaders of what they're involved in at Church Downtown, what you're up to, what you're going to be doing, what your ministry looks like. So we want to kind of hone in on what it is that a ministry team leader should do. Last time we covered the deacon area of what a biblical deacon is. And really, biblical deacon, as we saw, was about caring for people, especially in Acts. When you see the first deacons established, you see that the whole purpose was the apostles said, hey, we can't be spending so much time on doing the physical needs to neglect the spiritual study of God's Word and prayer for the people. So then the deacons come on and they say, let's elect these men to do this. Then we see a description of the deacons in 1 Timothy, and we see how that all plays out. And so our ministry team leaders at Church Downtown are meeting the biblical requirements for a deacon. So then not only the requirements, but then the job description basically is, what does a deacon do? And that's somewhat left up to the discretion of the churches, but I think one thing that's established is that deacons are caring for people. The ministry is to care for people. So we want to begin focusing our hearts and your hearts on that job description. So not only being task-oriented, because some of you may be over certain areas of ministry that you need to be in charge of and leading. So if, say that you're over, like Brad Wyant is over production, for instance, for our church. So it's not saying that Brad doesn't have to worry about anything that happens on Sunday morning and he's just wandering around shaking hands. We still need to accomplish the ministry, but we don't want to accomplish the ministry or accomplish the task at the expense of not caring for people. So we need to begin to figure out how do we incorporate these and how is our major goal to care for people, and a system and structure we put in place allows us to care for people. So for instance, on a Sunday morning, what does that look like for you? Some of the other thing is maybe you're not leading a ministry that happens on a Sunday morning. So Jasmine and Jesse, for instance, or Wills and Sarah Kitchen are working with community groups. Maybe their community groups never meet on a Sunday morning, so does that mean they get Sundays off? On a Sunday, they're not a deacon anymore. They just come sit and hang out and spectate and hope things go well. No is the answer to that. That's not what we want them to be doing. Our desire is for us to understand and kind of make this transition in our minds. This is one of the things I'm kind of asking you to step up to the table here, is to say if you're a ministry team leader, what it means is the first thing you're leading in is being a servant leader, and you're leading and caring for people. So all of our goal is that we don't really get a break as ministry team leaders because we don't get a break as Christians. And I explained this on Tuesday night. The heart here is that when we look at what the deacons are required to do, really the requirements or the qualifications of a deacon shouldn't be really any different than the qualifications of any Christian. So you read that list and it's not like, well, if you're a deacon, you better be doing that. But Christians, they don't have to be. They don't have to be faithful in their marriages. They don't have, no, that's ridiculous. So we all want to be above reproach. We should be striving to do that. So every Christian should be desirous to meet those qualifications. It should be our heart to strive to be followers of Jesus. And we don't take a break from doing that. So we are always, 100% of the time, followers of Jesus Christ, striving to follow Him. And now when you say, okay, I'm going to be a deacon, I'm going to be a ministry team leader at Church Downtown, and I feel like I'm striving to meet those qualifications, you're always that. We don't get a Sunday off. And what that means for you then is we always need to be focused as ministry team leaders on caring for people, making people feel welcome in our church. So on a Sunday morning, I'm going to say to you, it may look different on how it gets carried out, but I'm going to say your number one goal on a Sunday is whether your ministry is running or not, It's to be on the lookout for people, caring for people, and looking for new folks coming in, introducing yourself, welcoming them to church, looking for people who may be missing. I haven't seen so and so for a while. It's been a couple weeks. I wonder where they're at. And maybe you can then give them a phone call, send them an email, or if you don't know them very well, and you send an email to myself or Kelly or Pastor Brad or Caitlin or whatever ministry leader that they may be tied into a ministry, that someone that may know them. So we can send them an email and let them know we miss them, we care about them. So we want to begin making sure people in every capacity at our church feel welcome and that they feel like this is their home. So that's a requirement for ministry team leaders to say, hey, I don't get a Sunday off. When I come into the church, I am always going to be striving to care for people. Whether I'm on call or not on call, I'm always a Christian. I'm always a leader at this church, and my goal is to care for people. So we look like that. It'll look like that on a Sunday morning. No matter what you're doing, we want you to be focused on looking out for folks, making new folks feel welcome. So we're engaging people and remembering we just don't take breaks. We're always Christians. We're always on duty. So then secondly, that's kind of a Sunday morning deal. And maybe your deal on a Sunday morning is I'm over first impressions that morning, and I got a lot on my plate. Some things got moved. Setup's not going the way it should. Coffee machine's not working. Whatever it is. There are lots of things going on. I understand sometimes you're going to be task-oriented and you need to get the task done. But let's make sure that we're following up with our people. And if you've got people on your team then, so if you're a ministry team leader and you're head over a certain area, like First Impressions, for instance, it's making sure we know who's on that team. We're following up with them. I've talked with Caitlin and we've talked through with the children's ministries that we're setting up a system in place so that here's a leader and the leader has several people underneath of them. And the goal isn't that they're over them or there's some hierarchy. The goal is that if you're in this position, you've got people that you need to be caring for, and they've got people they need to be caring for under them. So that's always our goal, is not only on Sunday mornings, but then what you learned on Sunday. So-and-so wasn't here. This person didn't show up for this ministry. This didn't go very well. We're not just about trying to get the task accomplished and making sure that person wasn't faithful, so we're kicking them off the list. But it's a follow-up to say, hey, where were you? We missed you. We saw that you weren't able to be here on Sunday. Can I help you in any way? Is there something we can be praying for you about? We want to be communicating, caring for people. Communicating, caring for people. All these things are very important. So we talked about that, and then this idea of just overall, what is it to be a ministry team leader? This word leadership is a big deal. So what does that look like? And how do we carry this out? Because your idea of leadership may be different than my idea of leadership. What you see as leadership in the workplace. Like maybe you have a boss that's over you that doesn't give a rip about you, that doesn't care. You are not interested in following his leadership because he's not really leading. Or maybe you have someone that's been a leader in your life that they weren't in a position of authority, like a boss or a manager or something like that would, but they've just been your leader. You've followed them. And there's a reason that there's a difference there, because a title doesn't mean leadership. So just because you're a ministry team leader and you're on the team doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to follow you. What we need to begin to understand is leadership is about influence. And it's not so much of your title, it's about how you're connecting with people, how you're making people feel, and are you able to care for people at a level that they feel that you genuinely care and that you genuinely love them. So understand that whether or not you're a leader as listed over a certain area of ministry, if you're a ministry team leader and you've been invited to these meetings and you've been sitting in and been part of this, whether you're exploring it right now or you've been plugged in for months or years on this team, we consider you at Church Downtown to be a leader because that's what this qualification is of deacon, to say you're a servant leader. And we're leading first of all in the way that we care for people, the way we love on people. But this leadership, and I shared this acronym at our last meeting, so I wanted to catch you up to speed on what this is. You got leader spelled out, L-E-A-D-E-R, in case you didn't know how to spell leader. You can Google it too, it's on there. But leader, number one, I kind of just made this little acronym. Number one, the L of leader is we listen. And listening goes both ways. So it's this idea of communication, basically. If I'm a leader, I care about the people that are on my team. I care about the people I'm serving with. I want to listen to what they're doing. Sometimes this is direct listening. I'm asking questions saying, hey, what did you think about this? Do you think we could do this better? Do you think we could change this? Sometimes it's just listening to hear what they're saying and talking so that maybe they're not willing to come right out and tell you need to make a change or something needs to be different, or they're not even talking about this area of ministry, but we are listening to what they're saying so that we can hear what's going on, what people think about the ministries of the church, if people are being missed or not cared for, what's going on. So we listen, and then we also are being listened to, so it means we're communicating. If we have people on our team, part of leading is making sure we're sharing with them what they need to be doing, when they need to be doing it. We're sharing all this information so that there's clear lines of communication going on. Leaders listen. They're listened to and they listen to others. The E in this is educates, or I kind of changed this the other night to equips. A leader is about equipping the people on their teams to do the work of the ministry. And I shared this and even shared Jerry as the example of someone, Jerry Showalter, that I was talking to say, hey, I know you and Jeanette are over like the buildings and ground stuff and the cleaning. But if Jerry and Jeanette, for example, and this goes across the board, could find someone to train and equip to do the schedule for their ministry, to take that over, to be the point person for the cleaning, it doesn't mean they're out of a job. It means they've equipped someone to do a good job at picking up a ministry and leading it. And that's what leading is equipping other people to do the work of the ministry. So if you're over something and you can find someone else to bring up, every one of us should have someone in our ministries. If we're serving as a teacher, we're serving as a helper, we're serving as a leader over whatever the ministry would be, every one of us should look for someone to shadow us, someone that we can begin training and working, because our goal is to church plant. So if we can begin establishing these ministries so that we have people shadowing us when we go to plant a church, we've got other people who are already now trained and equipped to take over those roles of ministry, either here or at another church if they're willing to be sent out. So we equip, leaders equip people to do the work of the ministry, be training people to do your job, to care for other people, to be looking for needs, to be communicating, all those things. A is there's administration. So we're listening, we're equipping, and now we're administrating. There has to be administration in most of our ministries. If we're leading a certain area, maybe you're not the best at it, maybe you're better hands-on, like I get this thing done. But if there's no administration taken care of in your position, for instance, a First Impressions or any children's ministry, any of these that have schedules lined up for people, to be a part of something. If we don't have the administration part down, maybe you can't do it. We'll be on the lookout for someone who has a giftedness in that, to bring them alongside and to help you get your ministry organized and put in place. Leading, what else is it? It's administrating, organizing. D, it's delegating. So our job after we equip isn't just to equip people for knowledge, but it's equipping them and training them to do the work of the ministry. So then we're delegating authority, we're releasing authority to people, as I'm doing with you now as the leader of Church Downtown. I want to equip you, and I want you to be able to do your work. So if you feel like you're a leader over church ministry in some area, if Brad's leading in production stuff, and he comes to me and says, hey, I'm not really sure how the lights work, I'm not sure how this does, and can I find a way to get trained on this? And I said, no. Then that's not going to help him very much do the work of his ministry. So if you have other resources, other tools, you can be pouring into yourself to be trained and equipped for your ministry, giving yourself those resources you need. The goal is to get equipped and then to pass that information along so others can be delegated to do the work of the ministry. We have to be delegators. None of us should be able to, or expected, I should say it that way, to carry out every work of every ministry on our own. So we desire you to do that. Then there's E, encouragement and appreciation. That encouraging the people on your team is huge. if you don't feel like I appreciate you at the church, I am so sorry. You at the church downtown, as church downtown ministry team leaders, are the backbone of what we're doing here. If it weren't for you and this faithful team of people that have been part of Church Downtown from the beginning, we wouldn't be able to do most of the impact that we're having in the community and impact we're having on lives. We wouldn't be able to see that happen. So we thank you so much for what you are doing, for what you're pouring into the church. And I want to encourage you in that, and I want you to encourage the people on your teams that are serving underneath you to make sure that they know that they're valued and appreciated. No matter what time they're giving up, or with the time they're giving up, with their capacity and serving and using their giftedness for the Lord, make your team feel appreciated. Then lastly, there's a respect level. As I talked about at the beginning, maybe you have a job where you have a manager or someone that's got a position over you. You know respect doesn't come automatically. So a lot of times what happens is they want to they want to demand respect because of a title. You know, people that do that, they often don't get respect, because if they think they should be respected because of their title, then a lot of times they don't treat people in a respectful manner. So we don't demand respect, but if we begin respecting those on our team, and sharing with them, encouraging them, loving on them, showing them respect, it does so much as a leader to help other people come alongside you and be a support to you. The other thing I mentioned at our ministry team leader meeting last week was that there has to be a level of respect too, and it's not just for me, but I am the pastor at the church. God's put me in this position, and I'm serving in this capacity. So the level of respect for a pastor, it has to be there in a church, because that's the system that God has set up, and that's what He desires from us, that we respect. Not only should you respect me just because of the position that I'm in, but I also respect you in return for being the Christ followers that you are. And when there's a mutual respect, when it goes back and forth, that we respect each other, we care for one another, that rubs off on the church. Leadership is about respect. And the last thing I'll mention about that is, we also should be very careful that we're never, for lack of a better term, I'll use the old adage, to throw someone under the bus. We're on a team together here. So if something's going on and something happened in community groups, and you found out, man, Jesse's community groups they were just teaching people that Jesus wasn't the way to heaven, and that they should be followers of Brad Wyant, because Brad is he's one level above Jesus, and Jesse's group was talking about that, and okay, you can throw them under the bus. They deserve to be thrown under the bus for that. Don't do that, Jesse. No, I'm just kidding. But if you hear something's crazy, something's going on, rather than just saying, hey, let's discount these people, let's make fun of them. That was quite the extreme example I gave, by the way. Let's respect one another enough to go back and say, hey, I heard this was happening, and go right to the source. Defend one another, care for one another, support one another, and all of our ministries across the board. If you think the sound's too loud on a Sunday morning and you hear someone complain about it, don't say, yeah, I know, those idiots. That's not the way we create unity in the church. So we have to be careful on how we do those things. That's part of respecting one another, caring for one another, supporting one another as a team. So that's the idea of leadership. And then the last thing I want to bring your direction here that we talked about is a big piece of the next step in responsibility for our ministry team leaders, and that's this area of growth track in our church. The joke is that I change growth track every time we meet up. It's not actually a joke, it's truth, because we have changed it every time we've met, I think. So this has morphed a lot. And now that Pastor Mike's gone, I'm going to start doing it right. He just, talk about throwing someone under the bus. But he's not on the team anymore. He's in Vegas. Anyway, we do want to make a switch up. We do want to make a change. And I think we've been trying with Pastor Mike changing my screen up a little bit. With Pastor Mike leaving, this is causing some changes going on. But we were on this track anyways. We met last time, the very last meeting we had. We talked about how can we change growth track to look a little bit different, to be a little bit more conversational, maybe more laid back. Kelly and I are starting this at our home and trying to do somewhat of a small group, community group format with that growth track, which I think is going to be helpful to launch into community groups for those who may be new to say, hey, this is kind of what we do with community groups. You might want to get involved with one. We would love for you to do that. But there's a piece of this and an element that I want you guys caring for church members, connecting with church members. This is a key part of what I want you to be doing. And the new direction for ministry team leaders is to really be focused on caring for people. So this is going to happen through, one way this is going to happen is what I've already mentioned now through Growth Track. So what we're doing is, out of all of our ministry team leaders, there's a requirement that I'm going to ask you to be a part of our growth tracks. Now what this looks like is we're going to do it once a quarter, so potentially 4 times a year. May change a little bit of summer depending on who can come or who can't come, that kind of fluctuation. But once a quarter we're going to be holding these, and they're going to be 3 weeks of it every quarter. So next one starts October 1st, October 8th, and October 15th. So those are going to meet at my house. Now, Kelly and I will host the group at our house, and I'll be leading most of the teaching, but here's where I want your involvement. What this boils down to is we're going to split out pretty much equally all of our ministry team leaders that you will take. There may be 7 or 8 the first week, 7 or 8 the second week, and the third week, and it's split out like that. And you're all going to take pieces of helping host this group, not your home, but your hospitality. So you're going to show up first week, and Brad and I are going to compose an email here, and we're going to send that out in the next couple days. Actually, it'll be attached to this video. Never mind. So we'll send it out soon. Maybe you already read it. But here's a group attached to each one of these deals. So the first group, we're going to highlight ministries each week, highlight different ministries, have you connected to that. So if you're part of community groups, you'll be sharing the second week. So Wills and Sarah and Jesse and Jasmine will be coming, and one of the 2 of those groups, or 2 of those, or 4 of those people, 2 of the 4, I don't know what I just said. Someone's going to show up to represent community groups. And we'll be doing that. So we'll send out the list. You'll have something to do. We'll share that with you soon. Look for that email. And also, every time we meet, someone that's in charge, someone will be in charge from that little group of 6 or 8 in charge of the meal. So potentially, if this is spread out well, maybe one time a year your family is in charge, or your couple or whatever, or just you alone, however it works for you. You'll be in charge of helping provide the food for that. And then there is also going to be, connected with that, a coordinator for each one of those weeks, that if it's your week up and your first week, and say it's, just for lack of a better example, because Brad's sitting here with me, Brad is in charge of week number 1. Brad would send out an email. He would let you know that what's coming up. He would share with you what you're going to be in charge of that time, and he would put that schedule out. So we're going to get that all organized, and we're going to get all of that together, and we'll send that out on the email so you know what's going on. I'm excited about these changes, and the big piece of all of that and all that's going on with this is going to be to get you connected with people, caring for people, loving on people, letting them know what Church Downtown is about. We're about reaching the unreached, okay? Authentic followers of Christ, reaching the unreached, and advancing the kingdom of God. So that's what we're about. That's what we want to do. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. Thank you, Thank you, ministry team leaders, for listening. And we'll see you at our next meeting. We'll send out an email about that. Thank you.